Congresswoman, Merry Christmas. Thank you for being here. You voted for this continuing resolution, unlike your colleague, Beth Van Dyne. What was your reasoning and thought process behind voting for it? And what are you hearing about the president-elect Trump being unhappy that it did not include his main ask, which was the debt ceiling?
Well, I agree with my colleague that we do need to reduce spending. We need to get our debt under control. But that was not a choice. The choice was either we continue funding for 3 months or we shut the government down. We did what was basic to get us across this finish line, fund the government until President Trump comes in with the Republican trifecta, and then we will go through line by line and see how we can reduce spending and get our fiscal house in order. Remember, the beginning of the week, it was very different. Our speaker had a handshake agreement with the Democrats to give us a 1,500-page bill full of all sorts of stuff. And he made that agreement without speaking to the membership in his own conference. And that was a major problem. And we did push back. We killed that bill, and we got the basics. So as the Rolling Stones say, you don't always get what you want, but if you try, you get what you need. And that is exactly what happened here.
A great reference is, and Jackie was just touching on Speaker Johnson and possibly his future. He weighed in yesterday. Here's a little bit of what he had to say, and I want to get your reaction.
Elon Musk and I talked within about an hour ago, and we talked about the extraordinary challenges of this job. And I said, hey, you want to be Speaker of the House? I don't know. He said, this may be the hardest job in the world.
So take me forward to January 3rd. The very first order of business the House will do is to choose whether or not Johnson will remain Speaker. Where do you see it going?
Well, look, there's no doubt that it is an extraordinarily difficult job, particularly with the slim majority and the very opinions that we have within our conference. I would say that I don't necessarily think that the answer is to replace the speaker, but I do think there needs to be a better understanding between leadership and the membership, particularly of what we expect. We expect to know what kind of deals you're making with the other side, and we're not rubber stamps. I think that's number one. Number two, I think our leadership does need to help rank and file members secure legislative wins throughout the year. This should not be, at the very end, everybody's scrambling to try to get in their priorities, which is why you saw that first package become so bloated with so many pages. And number three, I just think that we need to have more of a member-driven process where we're all engaged at the very beginning, particularly where we're going into a year when we're going to deal with energy, we're going to deal with the border, we're going to deal with taxes, the whole Tax Cutting Jobs Act expiring. If this is not a member-driven process from the beginning where we can share with each other what our priorities are, it's going to be a mess. And so we need to have a better understanding from the speaker and from the leadership team on what next year will look like and how it will be different than what we just experienced this week.
You know, Congresswoman, one of the things you might deal with, to shift gears just a touch before we run out of time, are these mysterious drones. You and I have spoken in recent weeks about them flying over your district and here all along in the Northeast. And we saw the FAA this week establish essentially 27 no-fly zones. You can see the flight restrictions. I believe one of them may be over parts of your district. What's your reaction to that? And are you learning any more about the source of these drones?
Well, I requested these flight restrictions nearly 2 weeks ago. I'm glad they finally have done it. I don't think the restrictions go far enough, quite frankly. In my district, they do protect some power stations, but I also have concerns about our military installations and critical infrastructure like the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. We saw some drones flying in that area, which connects the Coast Guard and the Army base in my district. But what I'll say is that this has been so poorly handled by this administration. No answers, no real insight as to what is going on, and I don't think real honesty coming from these agencies. We had the most pathetic briefing earlier this week, and literally they were telling us a statement that I read on Twitter the night before. It was ludicrous that members of Congress and our constituents cannot get real answers as to the source of these drones. If it is commercial, just say it. if it is, the government doing activity that is necessary to protect our national security, maybe it's counterterrorism exercises, maybe it's testing of new equipment for law enforcement and our military, just tell us. But the fact that we couldn't get any real answers, and we still kind of don't have real answers, is very problematic. I mean, at one point they were trying to convince us that these were stars that we were seeing in the sky, which is just ludicrous. And it's insulting.
A little bit of transparency would certainly go a long way. Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, thank you for taking time today, and have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Griff.